Good, Oliver. Oh, perfect. I was just getting ready to do that. So we are now being recorded. So that means, mind your P's and Q's, at least somewhat. And Oliver, you can take it away.
Yeah, sure. Quick intro. Most or many of you at least know me. Been around for a while in the analytics space. For the people who don't know me, Oliver Hoppe, I'm living in Germany, West Germany. So for me, it's 10 p.m. Best time of the day to get stuff done. Having 4 kids at home. Yeah, over the last, so I'm working as an architect for a Cribl partner in Switzerland, Germany. Yeah, so for the last couple of years, I've been doing analytics architecture, lots of Splunk, lots of Cribl over the last 3 years as well, and lots of other stuff, all the nasty bits of Hadoop and data warehouses and whatsoever. And a couple of months back, my colleague Christoph, he's on the call here as well, so the nasty questions will go to him. And me thought, yeah, observability all over the place. Let's take away all the marketing talk. Safe. Just want to say BS. And it's really, let's start looking into it. I mean, that's what it was basically about. What does it mean? And we basically thought, yeah, Kubernetes is a way to go. To look at some data that we can try to observe, look at some of the analytics solutions as well. That was part of our, I don't want to call it POCs or POVs, but basically we looked in basically everything. Datadog, Splunk's cloud, how's it called? Observability cloud, Elastic, some open source from Loki and Prometheus and whatsoever. But the most interesting part was basically how to generate data and how to integrate it into those solutions, because in the end, the main conflict that personally I observed was it's again what Cribl's marketing people would call it, agent fatigue. You have dozens of otel collectors doing basically the same job, but not same, but different same. So you have 5 otel collectors that send your data in different slices and different flavors to different destinations. And that obviously is not optimal. And yeah, then you Cribl guys kicked in and we got a otel source. And that's what we connected it to. Let me share my screen, which is, I think, this one. You should see my screen in a second. That's my emails. That's not what you should look at. Here we go.
We didn't peek.
It's fine. It's fine. Quickly press the print screen button. Just shifting your video down here. That's some backup stuff. So basically what we did, and let's start with that. As a prep work, how to enable Cribl Logstream for collection of otel or OTLP, as it's then called. As simple as anything else, right? You basically click on Open Telemetry, add a new source, give it a name. That's it. Simple as that. Nothing else, right? And that's where the whole Cribl part of the whole demo stops. It's as simple. Destinations are a bit more difficult on OTLP, but I'm not sure yet if that's related to Cribl Logstream itself or if that's related to, I tried it just, and that's why it's still up here, with Datadog. So direct integration from otel collectors into Datadog works with their proprietary Helm chart, whatever. Same for the Splunk into their observability cloud, same for Elastic into their observability product whatsoever. I didn't get it running directly out of the box with Logstream, but that's most likely my fault because the destinations are kind of proprietary. Even they should be all OTLP based, but you need to enrich different API keys and realms and whatsoever. But from a configuration perspective, absolutely easy. The question is how could people use it? So where does the OpenTelemetry collector gets its use case from? That's basically Kubernetes clusters. So that is independent of where your Kubernetes cluster sits. If that is self-hosted, OpenShift, if that is whatever your local deployment on your laptop, or if that's really just one of the clouds. I used for my demo EKS, so Elastic Kubernetes Service, but it could be AKS or GKS. Yeah, you guessed right. AKS is Azure Kubernetes Service, and GKS then the Google Pendant. And that's actually straightforward. We will spend some short amount of time on some details how that is set up, and then how that is integrated into Cribl. So this is AWS hosted, simple, whatever, 4-core machine, I think. There's some spot instance. I hope it won't disappear. And then how that basically works is yeah, it's straightforward. So what I basically did, I created an EKS cluster, right? Absolutely easy. For the people that are not familiar how EKS works. So a Kubernetes cluster sits on different EC2 nodes, how AWS would call them, on compute nodes, where it's having its own orchestration layer. You pay something like $10 cents or something on it per running hour. And it's basically using the compute for spreading the workloads that you put as containers into it on different nodes. And it supports as well auto-scaling and draining of nodes if they should be shut down and stuff like this. But this is the whole command how to set up a complete EKS cluster in AWS via EKS control. That's how it's called. I think most of it is basically self-explaining. I'm just saying, okay, create me a cluster. That's my name. I'm using different instance types because I'm using auto-scaling on spot instances. So that makes it a way cheaper. So 70% cheaper than the normal on-demand instances. For the demo purpose, I just start directly straight away with 3 nodes, but I allow it to scale down if there's no load at all to 1 node, and to max 6 nodes. I don't want to get a bill shock. ASG access stands for auto-scaling group access. So I want that it auto-scales. Inside, I create a subgroup with a node group that I just call spot, 2 vCPUs, 4 gigabytes of RAM. Simple and cheap. And I'm using my AWS profile administrator and some SSH keys in order to get into it. And I'm forcing it to use 1-to-1. I don't want to rely on that they upgrade some weird Kubernetes versions, etc. Once that's done, it's quite easy to see that I don't demonstrate that here because it takes 15 to 20 minutes to do that. But once it's done, you basically have your own cluster ready that you can use for any kind of deployment. And at the moment, we are running with 2 nodes. When I started that earlier, I had 3 nodes. So I decided with an autoscaler that I deployed that it should scale down. On top of that, we deployed some workloads. Let me move over here. I might have still some stuff in my history here. So in my Kubernetes cluster at the moment, you see that I have 3 different namespaces. The default one, so if I don't define namespace, kubesystem, that's where all the core stuff that Kubernetes itself needs as a cluster runs in. And there's one thing that's outstanding, which is a cluster autoscaler that takes care of the auto scale up and scale down. And then you see that I have an otel namespace that I simply created with kube control create namespace. It's absolutely straightforward, where there are 2 different things running in. One is a collector and an agent that stuff could be sent to. So any kind of application that's using any kind of instrumentation libraries, etc., and wants to submit logs, traces, etc., and metrics could send their data to this collector and agent combination here. It's automatically launching the agents. I will show you the YAML files around that very soon. And because we wanted to get some metrics as well from the cluster itself, I could combine them, but I hate YAML actually. I deployed another OpenTelemetry agent, right? Straightforward. And in order to get some load, I launched a simple demo, and I'll have to give kudos to some people. Christoph is on the call here. My friend Christoph, a couple of months back, I don't know if he was bored, if he has suicidal thoughts, whatever. He thought that it's a great idea to take the Google boutique shop that everyone might have seen once in a while and change for every service, for every microservice inside the code to move from open sensors to open telemetry. He might tell you
that, by the way. So if you go to their GitHub, they have a more current otel demo that's So just FYI, people don't want to have to repeat that work.
Yeah, so I think if someone wants to talk to Christoph about that, he says, well, in Slack, how he did it, what he did, and what the pitfalls are, and he might even offer you access to his Git.
They are still not all instrumented, Clint. So they had Jaeger instrumentation for the spans and traces initially of only for a couple of services, and now they are moving to open census. That's correct. But the majority of them is integrated to Stackdriver. It's Google, so they promote their own stack.
Honeycomb forked it and did it for them. Just
yeah,
FYI,
exactly.
There's another, yeah.
Hey, Oliver,
yeah. So
there is a question on what's the difference between the collector and the agent?
The collector is basically really opening receivers where it can accept data from different sources within the cluster. Actually, theoretically as well from outside the cluster, but usually that runs within the cluster by different protocols, usually some kind of trace protocols, as was just mentioned here, open census, Jaeger, Zipkin, open telemetry, right, which is the successor of open census and basically the next stage of the other ones. And the agent itself, there are two things that the agent usually do. This agent that I deployed here is mainly taking care of metrics. So metrics from the collectors, metrics from the different pods, metrics from the nodes, etc. So like mem, CPU, whatever, network latency, stuff like this. But there's as well, for example, the Splunk guys, via their Helm chart, deployed an agent that as well takes the default log output from the different pods that you deploy, which is not enabled here.
If I may add something, Ollie,
Sure.
you can think about the collector mainly as a more or less a gateway, so that not all the agents are sending their information separately to the next. That's basically the concept of open telemetry, where they try to do something similar with Cribl, but standard open source approach. You have pipelines in there. It's really hard to configure them. You have three different. You have a source, you have a pipeline, you have an exporter to get the data out. You can combine them. It's really hard and cumbersome. But collector is, as I said, mainly a gateway.
Okay.
Yeah. So all those microservices, and you can see them here. It's a simple shop application, or not simple maybe, but it's a mock-up basically. We can take a look at this very quickly. Google Boutique Shop, quite straightforward. Here we go, microservices demo. You have a nice diagram that explains what it's doing and how it's working. Here you go, right? That's the whole architecture of the demo of the data source that we're using here. And there's the different interactions, and then obviously with the traces between those different microservices, right, where it's instrumented correctly. And as said, Christoph forked that into his own branch and changed to the open telemetry standards. And feel free, I just posted the link to basically this here. That's what it's basically doing afterwards, right? You have a nice shop where you can browse, add something to a cart, check it out, change currency and whatsoever. It's just a mock-up, right? Nothing gets ordered, and if Clint pays the bill. So that's just for demo purposes. If you directly integrate that in one of the observability analytics solutions out there, like Datadog, you get all those nice diagrams of hosts and interactions and services where you can then drill down. For the guys, for example, that played during last SplunkConf, what's it now called? Not Boss of the Knock anymore, Boo. They basically used the same and then used the cloud solution to demonstrate how you could get from metrics to logs and traces and vice versa and stuff, right? For now, we just want to integrate that into Cribl, which is, as said, not too complicated once you are familiar with the syntax of YAML and you are willing to read some of those YAML files that are available and exporters, etc. We are making use of the pure standard OTLP. So all those exporters that the OpenTelemetry collector offers, we don't need. We really use out-of-the-box OpenTelemetry export, right? So we don't need to change formats, change content, etc. to any of those, like Splunk HEC or SingleFX or whatsoever. We're using OTLP straight away. And let me show that quickly. So, wait, I just need to see the file. The otel config is the YAML file that I basically used. And you see that it's typical. It's a typical config map for Kubernetes written in YAML. And you can see that I have configured an exporter which makes use of the OTLP code base, which is sending data internally to otel-collector.otel.svc. That's my internal address, right? Some other configs that you basically don't need to change at all. And the most important part is that you connect traces and metrics down here. So we are receiving OTLP from the boutique shop, and we are sending it out via the exporter to an OTLP. The OTLP I configured up here, and that's basically the whole config that you need to change. All the rest of the YAML you basically get out of GitHub. Visit the Elastic website, visit the Datadog website, Honeycomb, New Relic, whatever you want. You will find all those configs for all of them, which are tailored for their solution, but generally you do. Someone, I just have a weird echo.
It's good. It's fine. So in this instance, what is the collector doing, and why not just run Logstream there?
We could run Logstream as well on the same Kubernetes environment, absolutely. But this just assumes that your Logstream environment sits somewhere. We could have a worker group sitting in the same Kubernetes cluster, receiving the data just locally. Absolutely, that would work as well.
I actually tried that already. So using your Helm chart.
I have the Helm chart ready.
Yep. So that's totally fine as well. Running it in the Kubernetes cluster, a couple of workers, a worker group in there.
I think we don't have a metric yet where it's a decision when to host your own Cribl Logstream worker group via the Helm chart inside your own Kubernetes and when not. It's like the decision, how long do you keep your data on-prem before moving to the cloud? How much data do you need to generate in the cloud before you host it in the cloud, right? The same applies to, do I really want, if I have dozens of different Kubernetes clusters, to host every time a Logstream in there on different worker groups? Maybe on the same worker groups.
There'll be some stuff to talk about in a few months about that. But but in general, every time you put something in the middle, you pay serialization cost. And so you're having the collector there. If it's just going to end up in Logstream, then you're doubling the serialization deserialization cost to put it on the wire. So push processing closer to where the data is emitted would be my guidance.
I think that
told Clint, we did that before you officially launched the otel source. So we integrated directly into Datadog into Splunk Observability Cloud, and then you released that one. And as you know, Ollie, he's just curious. That was the easiest way to just forward. If we would have built it from ground up, we totally would go that way.
Cool. Makes sense.
And there
are no wrong answers.
No, there are lots of ways that lead to Rome, as we say here, right? We as well integrated the OTel collectors directly via the HEC exporter to an HTTP source in Logstream as well.
Mm-hmm.
It just loses lots of context, right? Because everything is stuffed into that HTTP event instead of being capsulated with all the metadata attached to it in the right hierarchy, basically. So that made it a bit more complicated. That's the first one, basically. Then additionally, and I can show you the command for that, I installed from the OpenTelemetry repo, from the Helm repo, another agent, right? It's called here collector, but I'm interested in the agent, and all I did basically, I gave it some local values that I wanted to have because I wanted to, of course, configure or define on the metrics agent. That's all it's doing, right? That's all the config. It just says, hey, what's my endpoint? That's my cloud instance where Logstream is running right now. Insecure is fine. It's just a demo. Export as OTLP and give me all the traces and export it to the OTLP. That's all it's doing, right? For metrics and traces. And both of them get very easily deployed. We could actually show that very quickly. Let's focus on the first one first. Do an apply -f. Wait. kubectl. Let's delete it first. Delete -f otel-config Where's mine? It is there. It was just not auto-completing it. Okay, fair enough. kubectl delete -f otel-config dot YAML -n in the namespace otel. Now it's deleting it, right? That's all. That's how quickly it basically runs. If we now look at all namespaces again, you will see that it's terminating, right? The otel agent and the otel collector down here. And if we want to get that back, it's as easy as a deletion actually is, based on the YAML file that you have seen first. You just call an apply, create it. It's just launching now the pods. Already running. That was quick, right? And if we call a kubectl logs on the collector, hotel, we can see that it's connected, right? Just info messages, everything's fine. Simple and straightforward. So what we now expect is that out of our boutique shop, which has as well a microservice, kind of a load generator, right, running in the background, that we get some data into Logstream. And the source, I basically just did something simple before we do a capture. Let's take a look. Observability to Splunk, I'm just sending it to Splunk because Datadog didn't want to work with me out of the box. I'm just sending it into a very simple pipeline, right? Observability to Splunk. The pipeline itself is absolutely straightforward, which has an enable at the beginning. Because I have two different data types, one is spans and one is metrics. So I'm just saying, okay, source type and source is based on if the instrumentation library metrics is null, then it's a span. Otherwise, it's a it's a metric, right? And we serialize the data into a JSON object. I will show you a capture very soon. And at the end, we set two more things, right? Like main and goat, because we want to remove then some of the fields which are not part of the serialized data. Let's capture something. Should be simple. Yeah, let's do it. Here's some raw data. We get lots of spans, as you can see, right? Expanding some of them, you see that they're kind of huge, especially they become even worse once there is once there's really interaction between the different systems. So this here is, for example, now from Google called it initially Hipster Shop. Maybe some people were offended. Now it's called Boutique Shop. From the currency service here, right, from the convert function within the currency service, we got a span ID as you would expect it from a trace. The parent span ID, we have nano times for start and end, and we can see how it's performing. We can capture that very easily, which we just did. Just save that. And if we load that now into our pipeline here, which is absolutely straightforward, you see that I'm basically just serializing instrumentation library, everything out of it, and resource into a raw event, setting my different meta fields for Splunk, and then I simply get it to Splunk, right? So if we take a look at the spans here, I get my spans in Splunk. Could be anything else. I said, especially for the traces, Splunk, an on-prem or Splunk cloud environment is suboptimal, let's call it, right? That's not where this data should sit. That should sit in APM, in an APM solution like Datadog or anything else. But basically, you now have, I mean, the typical Logstream use case, right? You have the data at your fingertips. You can slice and dice it to your need. You can aggregate it, throw away what you don't need, enrich what you need, whatever, right? Everything as usual with the other integrations and data sources as well. That was spans, basically. And then there's a second one, which is, yeah, here we, for example, have one, right? We have now the instrumentation metrics. Whatever that here is, what is it? Current size of the retry queue of the otel collector exporter queue size. Whatever that means to me now. At the moment, actually nothing. We get all of this at the moment as a nice JSON event. That's actually what all the observability tools out there expect in the end right now. But honestly, if I would send those metrics as metrics into something like Splunk Elastic or something, I would obviously optimize the shit out of it, right? Because that's not how it should look like when it hits Splunk, because it's, yeah, lots of unknowns, right? Because not configured, or all this text, who needs it every time, right? It's absolutely useless. But that's how easy an integration basically works. Sending data to OTLP or to the OpenTelemetry source is absolutely straightforward. Doing something with the data, that's as usual, right? Whatever you want to do with it. Sending it out to an OpenTelemetry destination. I didn't get it working yet, but we just tried today. So let's see where that hits, where that is in the next couple of days, weeks. Happy to give you an update once that's done. Questions?
All right.
Other than showing that you can, what problem would you say you were looking to solve?
I personally would, there are dozens of use cases. I personally would look at, let me rephrase that. The problem is that most code is not instrumented today, right? So the hardest bit actually for this demo was to get the instrumentation right and having code that is instrumented correctly to get all the spans. If you have all the spans, the problem with all those span or traces, right, is that it is not really diverse in itself. It has a very high cardinality, so it is actually optimal for creating performance metrics out of for availability and success and whatever on your applications, right, if they're instrumented correctly. For the metric ones, I think it's quite interesting to have metrics that are generated on Kubernetes deployments on containers generally via Logstream into different destinations, right? The typical use case where different teams with different use cases, with different tooling that need the same data source, basically, right? What I mentioned at the very beginning, all the agent fatigue. I don't want to, just imagine you host your service, you're responsible for your own Kubernetes cluster. And then suddenly team A comes in and says, yeah, we need this infrastructure metric from you. And you start deploying their collector because they are in charge, right? It's their ECR somewhere or whatever, their container registry that you sit on top, where you get it from. Then team B kicks in, team C and team D, and finally security kicks in and says, hey, we want all that shit together. Just source it once, be responsible for what you source out of it, send it through Logstream, and then divide and conquer it from there, right? Divide it into the streams where they should be sent to, whatever the destination is, and leave the responsibility with a team that is orchestrating the system instead of getting more and more agents on top of it. Because it's not trivial, and everything is a workload, by the way, right? You don't want to have all this workload in your Kubernetes clusters, collectors over collectors over collectors. That's my main use case in that case.
Cool, those are all good.
I felt like that was the product manager or focus on where the company may go and like keep your fingers on what people are doing and what problems they're solving hat you were just wearing there, Clint.
Oh, I just like to ask questions.
Okay. Well,
I think the main point.
You do what you do, right?
I think the main point, Christoph, feel free to kick in why we started looking at it. It's like, I mean, I remember 10 years ago when everyone was talking about Hadoop, right? Everyone is talking about observability. Cribl is talking about observability, but has a very specific technology space where they look into, which is a wide range still. But right, it's about data integration, optimization, right? All these different topics. But observability is a way more. And if you don't start looking into it, you're just running behind all the time. So that's the main reason why we started looking into the topic generally, right? And we did internally some presentations which are more focused on how to do stories around. How was the tool called, Christoph? Chaos Mesh, right? Chaos Mesh for chaos engineering to crash pods or to create latency and to see how the different tools, if that's, as said, Splunk, Observability Cloud, Datadog, or Elastic, react to it, to see the stories, right? That suddenly some links between nodes, between your service nodes get red or amber, to drill down, see the traces, right? Stuff like this. I think that's where the future at some point sits, but I'm not sure how instrumentation long-term will work out, because it was already always difficult for developers to add code, right, for tracing. And just because there's no observability, that doesn't mean that they do it more motivated or better generally, right? So there will always be a gap of lacking this information. I mean, that's maybe pointing a bit to stuff like AppScope, right, where it's more automated, where stuff can be instrumented partially automatically. But generally, I think it's good to have a general solution beside the traces for metrics and for logs, right, that are generated in those systems. Not only get the cloud view from the cloud interfaces, CloudWatch, whatever, getting all those metrics, take it from where it's generated, maybe.
Yeah, I think I sent a Twitter thread that I was ranting on over the weekend. I took this exact same data set, the Google demo, but the Honeycomb converted version that speaks OTLP natively. So I didn't even have I just sent it to my cloud instance, actually. I didn't even have to run anything locally. So not just Honeycomb, because I feel like they feel like I was probably ragging on them personally, but I found this in basically all the tracing tools that I used, like a very kind of query centric way of exploring this data. I think one of the bigger gaps to me, so what I found was a really interesting discussion that might be interesting for this team, is that I came at it from a very operator centric perspective, which is like, here's this demo environment full of microservices that I don't know. Oh, I'm probably not supposed to use the F word. I don't know anything about. And so what I'm trying to do with this tracing data set is I'm actually trying to understand, like, what services are there, how are they interacting, how are they talking to each other, which services are healthy, which services are unhealthy, which services are the top talkers from a network perspective, like who's talking to each other the most, because like, I don't know anything about this software. I just got this software, like somebody else's software, like what even is this? And how do I kind of reason about that? Which I feel like Splunk as a product does incredibly well, right? You've got your field explorer, you get your fields at the left, you've got your full field summary view that you can go and start navigating around. Nobody else has this basic stuff, which I think is interesting 10 years later, that we're looking at, products like Honeycomb or products like Datadog logging or Datadog tracing or whatever else, which are these incredibly on rails experiences that basically say like, okay, you can write any query you want in Honeycomb, or in Datadog logging, you can search for any word that you want, but we're not going to give you a summary view of the data. We're not going to take all this data and give you easy ways for you to navigate it and build your queries based off of that. And I think it's a big hole in the space today. I think that people are undervaluing, because I consider distributed tracing to just be logging. I mean, it is, we're going to call it something different, but it's logs with a parent-child relationship, right? Yeah. And we have this incredibly rich data source that I want the system to do a better job of summarizing for me, so that I know what even the basic shape of the data is and where I can navigate. I feel like it's a big hole in modern observability tooling. And my hope in tweeting about that is I hope everybody gets better. Like, I'm not complaining about particular products. I just think it's like a huge hole that I can't navigate this stuff. I don't know if people use other tools, but I find that frustrating about metrics tools. I find it frustrating about like Kibana as an example. I find it frustrating about Datadog logging. I think we can all do better here.
I think interestingly enough, Splunk actually may have done that better 8 or 10 years ago, and then lost their way a bit and have gone back into that better again. Like, yeah, I tend
to agree with that. I mean, I think the part that I think is really funny, and like the sort of hint behind that was like, why didn't you at least look at the other products first? Why didn't you look at this other product and just copy that thing? It's all there for you. Just at least do that and then do something better, right? Like, I don't know why people don't do that.
Right. Oh,
this is a great demo.
Yeah, I liked it. Jumping right in. It'll be good to have a recording though, because I was like learning my way through the things you were doing that, like, there's background stuff. I'm glad you did it step by step though, so I can actually see, possibly might be able to recreate this on my own without having to learn the whole thing all at once.
Well, I mean, just starting with Kubernetes is ludicrously complex.
Right. So
yeah, it took me some time to turn my head around getting used to Kubernetes. Everyone started using it around me, especially the younger folks, and I started feeling old. So that's where, thanks to Christoph, we just picked it up and started doing it.
I feel the same about just Docker. Like, people just keep doing it, and I'm like, but it doesn't solve any problem I have. Mainly because I don't realize I have the problems it solves. I guess someday I'll just get in my head, no, it does solve a problem, and I would have.
Have you not seen that the Johnny Depp meme where it's like I can't reproduce this. Okay, well we'll ship you the whole computer. That's what the problem that Docker solves.
Well, yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I can't reproduce this in my environment. Okay, I will ship you my entire environment. That is the problem that Docker solves.
I guess that's something to solve.
No, it's huge. I mean, it's a massive productivity win for, especially, it depends on whether you, I would say if you work on teams with people, Docker changed the world, because being able to like Docker run this thing and get the exact same thing that the other people got. I mean, for the first 10 years of my career, I cannot remember how many times somebody's like, can't reproduce that in my environment.
Anyway, are there any other questions or comments or anything else? I mean, Oliver's on here late at night, although not for him. If I remember correctly, you're on awfully late sometimes.
I'm a night owl, as we would call it here in Germany. Yeah, I love nights.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It was always like this. It's fine. I won't go to sleep now. Just to quickly tackle the bit again that you mentioned earlier, Clint, and that connects as well to what you said, Rich. Kubernetes is quite brilliant if you really just want to test something very, very quickly. To give you an example, deploying Cribl in Kubernetes, a leader with 2 worker groups, 2 workers each in each worker group, takes less than 60 seconds. It's just absolutely easy. You save the command, you directly hand over everything that you need, right? Your license key, your tokens, your passwords, whatever you want. You can as well outsource that by the Helm chart, etc., and you get going within seconds. And if you break something, you just shut it down and start it again, and it takes you another 30 seconds or 60 seconds to be back to where you were before. And that is, especially for dev testing and exploration mode, absolutely great.
If you want to fully can Kubernetes environment on your laptop, we have a demo for AppScope that's a pretty good one. I'll put it in the chat here.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And Clint, you mentioned that EKS is a hell of a beast to tame, and I totally agree there in Kubernetes. But your demo environment for Logstream was the reason why I started doing it, because my laptop was too weak.
So I'll tell you how I solved this problem. Under my desk is a 10-core 64 gig desktop. And so I do all my compute. I got tired of my fans kicking on and my lap getting warm. So I moved to an M1 MacBook about a year ago, and that's actually when we released ARM64 support, because I wanted to run Cribl on my MacBook, so I added ARM64 support for Cribl. And I don't actually use it all that much, but it's helpful because we ended up building our cloud on Graviton, so that ended up working out well. But a lot of the software that I use for demo doesn't have ARM64 support, and like AppScope didn't have ARM64 support, and still it's kind of, most of the stuff works, but not quite all of it, because we actually have a reasonable amount of x86 assembly in there, so it's not easy to port. So I keep my Intel computing on a desktop, and I find that works really well. I also have like gigabit fiber to my house, so the latency is low, bandwidth is high, so I can download and push images at pretty quick speeds. So anyway, that's how I solved the cloud problem, but I totally agree. We actually, all of the sandboxes all run on Kubernetes, our demo environments that technical marketing maintains. So if you go to the Cribl demo, so Cribl.io/Cribl-demo, that all runs on top of Kubernetes now. There's also some scripts in there that show like EKS cuddle and spinning up our demo environments on top of EKS. So we use EKS heavily as well. I just get frustrated because yeah, that first cluster create is, I think 15 minutes is generous.
Yep, definitely is.
Takes a long time.
Hmm.
But EKS cuddle is definitely the way to do it. Don't try to use the AWS UI. It is a total clusterfuck.
It's still quite funny to follow what it's doing. I mean, EKS control is doing nothing else than sending CloudFormation templates in, and CloudFormation takes care.
Yeah, it's just better at it than the. Remember,
Right.
with AWS,
Yeah.
like the quality is not evenly distributed across that organization. So
that's an interesting way to put it, but totally accurate.
Some services are really good, and some of the UIs are really good, and some of them are not.
Mhm.
Okay. I was pretty amazed when I was using it for the first time. I have to admit, I was mind blown. It's just like, what, this command now triggered all those CloudFormation things? That's amazing, right? And you can roll back and use
the UI.
No, I never tried the UI. Why would I?
The UI is crap because I started with the UI and then moved to EKS control. So I know what Clint is talking about. It's really
the UI actually literally does not work. Like I kept running into situations where it just doesn't actually, you don't actually end up with a working Kubernetes cluster at the end.
I paid to get it running, and then I found a tutorial about EKS control, and okay, that's way more my style to do it.
Yep. Cool.
All right. So some bookkeeping here real quick. We are on the lookout for somebody who would like to give a presentation or a talk next month. So if you have anything you could do, it does not have to be as technical as Oliver's. You can totally like wing it. In fact, I think Oliver did. He just did such an amazing job, you'd never know it. You can, yeah, we can even pair a couple of small short ones in here too. If you know you've got something for 10 or 15 minutes instead of a half hour or 45 minutes, we're happy to host you. We can sit around and fill the gaps with other chatter about who knows what. We can also, I don't know, do we have any swag this time? Somehow I think I'm the user group leader and I ought to be figuring this out ahead of time rather than just asking at the last minute and going, hey, Rachel.
Hi. I actually don't know what the status of our swag situation is because I know we just hired someone new who is taking that over, but we can still do a raffle. And then whenever I figure it out, I will get addresses and
hey, let's just like, we should give them a blanket.
I like that idea a lot. I don't know.
The blankets are awesome. No,
yeah,
I know we have one because I'm pretty sure there's another one coming to my house because I asked for one and they said that they're coming. So
okay, so one person. let's if you know there's at least one.
There's at least one available.
All right, let's just do one then. And you know, of course we try to always send something nice to whoever spoke. But you probably have all of our swag, Oliver, already.
No, not too much. Some shirts. I'm missing still a hoodie.
Oh, okay. We'll see if there are any of those left as well.
That's the extended hoodie gate of Splunk. No hoodies.
Yeah, we inherited that, I guess. Hoodie gate. But yeah, the blanket is super nice. So, well, a lot of people are bailing.
Yeah, I
take the blanket. Actually, I'm freezing
really
now.
Nice.
I really need a blanket.
Okay. All right. I guess it's settled.
I mean,
You're getting the blanket.
If you were to substitute the blanket by some good booze, I mean, that warms me up as well. That's up to you.
Yeah, but that's temporary, right? Like, you know, you get the booze, you're warm for a night.
Hoodies are legit.
We give you a booze. Oh, I think Clint may have gone to get the blanket. Also, you see his own goat there.
Yeah.
Ian the goat.
Oh.
I did realize as Rich was starting to wrap up, I better go grab my dice.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
When Rich runs now out, I was expecting that Rich would run out to the backyard and grabs a real goat and carries it in.
Buttercup has some friends.
friends.
That's right. Buttercup has a friend now.
That's super
That's
nice. Oh, the
Yeah, so
dog
here's-
likes the goat too. Or likes the blanket as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
look
so
at
my little one, we cover her up in it. Evie, come here.
I mean, I can roll dice. I got them unless you got yours handy.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, no, go for it.
Needs to
You can
feel
take it
like he
over.
has a purpose in life.
What do we need? I got a whole list here, but I don't know who are Criblarians, to be perfectly honest.
I've got a list of those some people logged off since I took the last screenshot.
Oh, how many sided dice should I roll?
Let me do it again. Hold on a second.
Because I'm gonna do a 12 or a 20. I'm
Getting
sure
out
it's
of
gonna be one of those.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So
Fine.
roll a d10, and if it's
I'll
a
roll a
1, start over.
I will do so. Here's a D10. Do you want to watch the roll or do you trust me?
Oh, but we could like
hard
both
question.
roll and then we take the average.
4. Oh, it doesn't. I'd have to turn off the background. Wait.
It's not gonna work.
Wait.
See,
Oh,
Eugene had a whole
oh,
setup. For
Ah. Anyway,
God,
whatever.
Rich.
I promise it's a 4. I have no idea who 4 is, so I don't know how I'd, like
Exactly.
that in the system anyway.
Double blind.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's Ryan Saunders, but you've already got a hoodie, dude. You're set.
Oh, come on.
All right, you're the winner, and then
He's the
Oliver
winner.
will send you a blanket as well. And if I find another hoodie, I'll send one to you as well.
All right.
All right, cool. So I probably already have your address, Ryan, if I already sent you a hoodie at one point. So if it
Yeah, I
has
think
changed,
you have it, but I'm happy to provide it
Yeah,
again
just-
if needed.
DM it to me again if it has changed since the last time.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good.
And anybody wants to give a talk, just poke us in the user group channel.
Oh yeah,
We'll
winning the
book you
raffle
directly.
means you have to give a talk next time.
Ooh, that's a good rule.
I'm happy to give a talk. I was thinking about volunteering. I really enjoy the Kubernetes stuff because I'm running Logstream there. But if there's anything specific that you all are curious about, especially as it relates to running,
Why not
Logstream and
showing
Kubernetes,
how all the Helm chart stuff works? That would be, I think, awesome for many.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
If you could demonstrate how you're running, well, I mean, not your production, but how you generally are running Logstream on Kubernetes.
Yeah,
Would be
I'd love
awesome.
to, yeah,
Just like an
I'd be happy to.
overview.
Helm charts, pitfalls, right? I hear some stuff in the Slack channels. Some stuff is a bit complicated. You need to take care of. It generally works, but with persistent volumes and stuff, right? No cross availability zone stuff, right? How did you plan? How did you roll out? I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it. I mean, there's still we're early in our Kubernetes rollout here, but there's definitely, as you said, some rough edges and things that we're still working out and working through. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk.
Upgrade
Cool.
procedure would be of interest as well, for example, because it's quite different from upgrading on a standard environment.
Yeah, cool.
If you've got experience there.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, but it sounds like he's going to have experience real soon now that he's decided he's probably giving a talk about this.
1 month, baby. 1 month.
I'm going to be like, taping back.
Otherwise, we send Rachel to take the hoodie back.
There's
Yeah,
also-
you guys let me know if you have specific Kubernetes questions before next month. I can make sure I cover them. This will be my
There's
second
also
deployment in so.
Kubernetes channel in the community if you're not in it.
Steve is quite active there.
Yeah, I think he's rolling off of being responsible for those Helm charts, but he is always
Yeah, you
around to
mentioned
help.
that. Cool. I call it a day, and you have still half the day to go for you, huh? Working.
Well,
Yep.
some of the guys in the call here, like Gareth, even started their day already. So it's quite early there, isn't
Right,
it?
Gareth is New Zealand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's almost 11 a.m. I'm just getting into things.
Enjoy
Well,
your
I'm glad
morning
you
coffee.
I wish you're a nice shift, a calm shift.
I'll pass it on to David, who is thoroughly doing some busy work right now.
So that's
That's
the
good.
Cribl support in between SU.
So if you ever want support, go to Gareth. He's taking care during APAC time zone.
Yep, I'll pass it straight over to David. Dead easy.
Cheers.
All
Talk soon.
right.
Have a
Thanks,
nice day.
everybody. See us next month.
Yeah.
Same.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.